Had a great Thanksgiving break. We're back now talking on chapter 13, the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes are awesome. I love the Beatitudes, particularly because they were key to helping me kind of understand anew and appreciate for the first time maybe my Catholic faith. The word beatitude is really key to helping us understand what's going on. The word beatitude actually means happiness, peace, or blessedness. And so when Jesus gives us the Beatitudes, what he's saying is if you want to be happy, if you want to find peace, if you want to find blessedness inside yourself, this is the way to do it. And not just in some future kingdom, not just in heaven, but now. And I think that's really important to understand that the Beatitudes are keys to happiness right now, right on this earth, while we're still here. That's really a key thing to get. And I've talked about that a couple times in classes. The Beatitudes, really quickly, just want to rattle them off. You've probably heard them many times in Mass and so forth. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the land. Blessed are they who mourn, for they will be comforted. Number 4, blessed are they that hunger and thirst after justice, for they shall have their fill. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the clean of heart, or the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Blessed are they that suffer persecution for my sake, or for justice' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so those are awesome. We're going to dive into those as kind of themes on each of those topics. The first one, poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. What does it mean to be poor in spirit? Sometimes we hear the word poor, we think it's just talking about poverty in general, not having stuff. But what does it mean to be poor in spirit? That's not something that we hear a lot. It is a recognition that I need God, that I can't do it on my own, that I can't find happiness, that I can't find peace, that I can't find beatitude or blessedness on my own, that I need God. So when I recognize my poverty in my spirit, that I'm incapable of generating that myself, that's what it talks about. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. You will then find peace, the kingdom of heaven here on earth right now, if you recognize that you are poor in spirit, that you can't do it on your own, that you are not sufficient enough to find and obtain for yourself the peace that you're looking for. A key word here when we think about poor in spirit is the word detachment. It's a word that keeps coming up in my prayer life and in my spiritual life even right now. It means that we're not attached to worldly goods. It doesn't mean that the worldly goods are problems, video games, food, coffee, caffeine, Coke, TV, whatever those things might be. I mean, it's not saying that those things are evil, but it's saying, are you attached to them too much? Attached, as in I can't let go of them. That's what the word detachment means. Detachment is something that you hear in all the spiritual masters, all the people all the great saints. Be detached, detach yourself. It is a physical act to detach myself from those things. So in a sense that I'm not now necessarily needing them, that I can live without them. Detachment. When we are attached to worldly goods, we can't be poor in spirit because we're saying, I'm relying on these goods. I must have them. Without them, I can't live. If that's the case, when I'm attached to something in a worldly sense, I can't then also be poor in spirit because I'm saying, I'm not letting go of all those things. I'm not poor in spirit. I have stuff that I grab onto in my spiritual life. The worldly goods that are out there, if we're attached to them, they give us the impression that we are not poor in spirit. And not that we can't enjoy them again occasionally, but the question I think is, do you need stuff to make you happy? The image that I love here is, of course, it's Christmas. We're getting ready for Christmas. It's Advent. Of course, the Who's are on. The Grinch stole Christmas, right? Are you happy without stuff? And this is, I love, it's not like, the Bible or anything, how the Grinch stole Christmas. But I love that idea that when everything's taken from them, their tree's gone, all their gifts, all their presents, all their food, they still come out and they sing. Now, of course, in this, it's a big ball of light, but we, of course, recognize that of course, is Christ. We come out and can we still celebrate and be thankful for God and for Christ and His gift to us in all things, even if we had nothing, if we were poor and on the street, Would we be okay? So that's what detachment is. I don't need them. If I have a Christmas tree out in the middle of the town square, that's great. If I have lots of stuff in my house, or if I'm blessed to have food on the table, if I have, I occasionally sit down and watch a television show or play a video game, that's great. But if it got taken from me tonight, would I still be okay? Would I still be happy? That's what it means to be poor in spirit, okay? This is one of my favorite quotes. I just saw this on Twitter the other day, and I love it. I love G.K. Chesterton. I think I've shared that with you many times. He's one of my heroes. There are 2 ways, he said, to get enough. There are 2 ways to get enough stuff. One is to continue to accumulate more and more. The other is to desire less. Man, how awesome is that? Advent is a season of detachment. It's a season where we can say, you know what, I don't need all that noise. I don't need all the things. They're all good. I'm excited for Christmas. I'm excited. I love God. I love the world, but I don't need it. I don't need the world in the sense of I can let go of all that stuff. Do we try to accumulate more and more, or do we simply learn to desire less? I've realized in my life I have a long way to go, but as I've desired less and less, I've found myself more happy because I don't need as much stuff. The less you need, then when you have stuff around you, then you're happy. If you need all this stuff to make you happy, then you're not happy until you get it all. Right? So that often leads to misery, particularly when that stuff is taken away. So that's poor in spirit. Okay, we want to look at now, if we remember the second one is blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the land. So let's talk a little bit about, let's look at suffering first. That's because I think we want to talk a little bit about the third beatitude, blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. What do we mean by that? Let's look at the word suffering. I think this is a great topic and a really important topic for us as Catholics, right? Very important topic for us as Catholics. Suffering, most people say, it can't possibly be good, right? I mean, suffering, there's no way that if I'm suffering that could possibly be good. Most people are flee suffering, avoid suffering at all costs. Whatever it takes, if you're suffering, then run from it. Now, this is a great teaching of our church, and it's unique, I think, to Catholicism. I'm not hear any other faiths talking about suffering the way that our Catholic Church does, and it's awesome, and it gives me great hope. Whereas most people say, flee suffering. You turn on some of the preachers on TV, and they're telling you, like, hey, if you're good enough, if God loves you, He's going to give you a whole bunch of riches and abundance. The church doesn't say that. The church says that suffering is actually something that is always good if we let it be effective in our lives. That's a uniquely Catholic thing, and I hear that only from the church, and that's one of those reasons that I'm so thankful for my Catholic faith, right? What the church says is this: Christ suffered, and it brought about good for us, and so when we suffer, it must always be good as well. Christ suffered, and it brought about our salvation. Christ on the cross is the reason we can go to heaven, right? And Christ's sufferings win for us a victory. And so because of that, when we suffer, it must be that it wins something good as well. That's what Christ is saying to us. That's what the church and the saints are saying to us. So when I suffer, if I let it, it can be good for me and for others. So the suffering will change me for the better, because it'll make me a better person if I do it and I go through it with a good spirit and the right attitude and mindset and faith. Then that suffering purifies me. It gets me, when I'm suffering, it's much easier to be detached from stuff, right? It's much easier to let go because I'm hurting. I don't care about all those worldly things. I'm in the midst of this pain, and none of those things are going to make me happy. And so it's much easier to be detached, right? I can also then, when I'm suffering, I can also offer this suffering up for other people. So I can say, I know of this person at school or my friend who's also going through some difficulties. I want to offer my suffering up for them and allow it to help them, just as Christ's suffering helps us. That's a beautiful thing. I can offer someone up my suffering. That's just an amazing teaching of our church, and you're not hearing that in a lot of other places. So the church, we believe that you're actually blessed when you suffer. That doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It hurts. Yes, suffering hurts. And there's that. That's exactly what suffering is this pain. But that pain, in a good way, when I'm offering it up and I'm giving that back to God and I'm allowing it to cleanse me, the church says in a weird way, we are blessed when we suffer. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are those who suffer. How are the suffering then comforted? How do if it says, God's going to comfort us in our suffering, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Christ doesn't eliminate our suffering, so I'm not helped. He doesn't oftentimes eliminate my suffering altogether, although sometimes we can be cured miraculously, etc., from things that we're hurting from. But most often, the way that my suffering is comforted is by accompaniment. And what that means is that Christ walking with me, God being with me, helps me in my suffering. Just in the same way that the way that you're asked to help comfort the sufferings of others is to be with them, to walk with them. Like Simon of Cyrene, who's pulled out of the crowd and is asked to help Christ carry his cross. It's not that we're not asked to take away the suffering. Most often times we can't take away other people's sufferings, but we are asked to walk with them, to accompany them, to walk alongside them and be with them in the midst of their suffering. Even while we suffer and feel abandoned by God, I realize I am not abandoned. And that's kind of one of those miracle things, or one of those paradoxes, really, of the faith, is that I suffer and I cry out to God, why have you abandoned me? Just like Jesus does on the cross. Sometimes I cry that out, when I'm suffering. But what we recognize is that even in crying out, why have you abandoned me? I recognize that I haven't been abandoned. Just like Jesus recognized that, of course, even though he was saying those words, he knew even in the crying out that God hadn't abandoned him, that God was there with him somehow. And so this is the real power of suffering, right? Okay, let's look at another one of the Beatitudes. Let's look at, blessed are those who are meek, number 2. Blessed are those who are meek, for they will possess the earth, they will possess the land. What is it about meekness? Okay, meekness is often confused because we think of meekness as being weenie, kind of being a wimp a little bit, right? It's meekness, when we talk about meekness and saying that we will be blessed when we live that way, what we mean is being meek people are people who are gentle, but in a tough way, right? Like in a sense of, it's oftentimes like, masculine, sometimes the culture will say, if you're a man, you can't be meek, you can't be gentle, right? All these sorts of things. But we're talking about man and woman, men or women, gentleness, meekness and gentleness, but gentleness in a gritty way, in like a tough way, in a hard way like that, in a sense that meekness takes courage. It takes toughness to be humble. And that seems odd. It takes toughness and grittiness to be gentle, to be meek and humble to other people. We hear that phrase, turn the other cheek. And I heard one time Father Robert Barron, now Bishop Barron, talk about that in a very beautiful way. And I hadn't thought of it that way before. But he says, when it says that Jesus says we are to turn the other cheek when we get slapped, when you get slapped, it takes toughness to not fight back. It actually takes strength to hold back your hand and to simply, he points out, when I turn the other cheek, I'm still standing in this place and kind of confronting and making that person who just slapped me deal with the fact that they just slapped me, right? And kind of I'm standing my ground. So I'm turning my other cheek, but I'm standing my ground. There's that toughness and that grittiness that is needed for meekness. It also could be described as being patient or maybe being obedient to others. There's a meekness and obedience kind of go hand in hand. Do I obey those who are put over me? There's a beautiful quote that I wanted to just share with you from, this is from The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series. Okay, this was actually in the book, first of all, by J.R.R. Tolkien, who is, of course, a great Catholic author. There's the scene where there's an evil character who is causing problems for people. And one of the characters says to kind of the priestly figure, Gandalf is the priestly kind of figure, and one of the characters says to him, he says, I wish that Bilbo would have killed that person when he had the chance. I wish he would have killed the bad guy when he had the chance. And Gandalf, the priestly character, he says this beautiful line. He says, true courage is about knowing not when to take a life, but when to spare one. It's not about knowing when to take a life. It's about knowing how to spare one. It's about restraint. True courage, true meekness, it's about restraint and toughness. It takes toughness, again, to be strong like that so that we can be meek. And so it's not about, oh, I'm a weenie, or oh, I'm a wimpy, that kind of meekness, or that we're supposed to mope around and just kind of have our eyes down and never look anyone in the face or anything like that. No, meekness is toughness. It takes strength, inner courage to be meek. Okay. Let's look at righteousness. Blessed are those who are who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Righteousness or justice is the same word. And let's remember and review that the justice means giving to someone what they are owed. Remember that from the virtue of justice. Justice is giving to someone what they are owed. And so the question is, do we hunger for that? Do we hunger and thirst to see people given what they are owed? Or do we simply kind of walk around and not notice other people, not notice or think about what it is that other people might be owed? Do you hunger to see people given what they are owed, like not just materially, food, water, clothing, and shelter, those basic things that every human being deserves, but not every human being has. So we should hunger and thirst that we see everybody get those sorts of things and have those basic necessities of life met. But we also, are we hungering and thirsting to see everyone with the things that they are owed in terms of a spiritual sense? So are we hungering and thirsting to see people receiving respect? Are we hungering and thirsting to see people who are making sure everyone is honored and loved and recognized and cared for in a spiritual sense too? That's the type of thing that we should be hungering and thirsting for. What do you do when someone is treated unfairly at school? Do you hunger and thirst to see that situation made right? Do you seek to help out in that regard? Do you speak up if someone's being gossiped about, etc.? Do you work to help people in your community who lack the basic necessities of clothing or food or water or anything like that? Do you hunger and thirst to see them fed? Are you out working and working tirelessly to help make sure that happens? That's a good thing for us to think about. Most of us probably don't hunger and thirst for righteousness or justice. Most of us hunger and thirst for, first and foremost, ourselves, to be fed and to be nourished and all those sorts of things. And we spend most of our time caring for ourselves. And we don't hunger and thirst so much for making sure that other people have what they need. And we should do a better job of that. That's what Christ is encouraging us. He's saying, if you do that, you will be happy. You will be fulfilled. Let go. Stop caring so much just about yourself and hunger and thirst to see other people receive the things that they are owed. Okay, another one that we talk about, another Beatitude says that we should be merciful. Blessed are the merciful, right? Now, it's really an awesome topic because in mercy, this year, starting on December 8th, we begin the year of mercy. Okay, in the Catholic Church, Pope Francis said this coming year is going to be a year of mercy. And there's a lot of stuff we'll preach on it, and I'll preach on it and that kind of thing as we go through. But how do we show mercy, I think, is a good question. What does it mean exactly, and how do I go about showing someone mercy? So the church has some very helpful things. I think we've looked at these in past classes as well. But the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. Spiritual, obviously, being things of the mind or the spirit. And the corporal means body. So physical works of mercy that I'm doing as well. The church has these. They're a beautiful list. So the spiritual works of mercy. I need to admonish the sinner. If I see somebody doing something wrong, it's a work of mercy to help tell them, hey, what you're doing is wrong. You're hurting yourself. You need to... So admonishing the sinner is kind of disciplining or saying something to someone that you see sinning, and letting them know, hey, there's a better way to do that. You're going to end up in misery. Try it this way. This is what will lead to your happiness. Instructing the ignorant is very similar. But it could also be teaching somebody, teaching younger people, helping other people who need an education in some way. Maybe it's somebody that was in jail or whatever and is looking for an education now in their adult years. Helping people who need an education is a spiritual work of mercy. Counseling the doubtful. So those that are having doubts, those who are really down maybe on themselves or on others or on God, counseling them and just being with them and speaking with them and assuring them that there is reason to have hope, there is reason to love, there is reason to keep going. Right? In an era where so many people are committing suicide, young people especially, that can be a really help. Imagine, is there somebody in your life that is doubtful, that's struggling, that you could help? Comfort the sorrowful. Are there people that are sorrowing that you know of that you could be with? Help them in the midst of that. Walk with them, again, as we were talking about accompaniment earlier. Bearing wrongs patiently. Being patient with other people even when they're harming you or doing you injury. not lashing out, forgiving when they do injure you, and praying for the living and the dead is another spiritual work of mercy. Do you pray for those who've deceased? Do you pray for your grandparents that have passed on? Maybe some of you lost parents or friends or family members. Do you pray for the dead and also those who are living? Now, the corporal works of mercy, again, more oriented towards the body and helping care for the body of other people. Do you feed the hungry? Do you give drink to the thirsty? Do you clothe the naked, sheltering the homeless, visiting the sick, visiting the imprisoned, and burying the dead? You know, and again, burying the dead could be a lot of things, but maybe it's helping out at funerals, you know. Maybe it's finding some people that couldn't afford to help, to have a funeral or to bury themselves or whatever. There's a lot of different ways. You know, maybe it's serving at a funeral mass. All those different things contribute to helping with that regard. So caring for other people's bodily needs is also a way that I can show mercy in this year of mercy. It's a good thing to think about. What I want to do is watch just this really short 3-minute video from Bishop Coyne and his diocese in Burlington, Vermont. They put together a great video for the Year of Mercy, and so I just want to watch it right now.
I think this world is starving for mercy right now. I think it's so lost, and we all want to feel love. And especially, whether we know it or not, we want God's love. We need God's love, and we find it in the wrong places. And this year makes us step back and realize, where am I finding that love? Where do I need mercy in my life? And it gives us the opportunity to say, yeah, I'm broken. I'm a human being. And I have a fallen humanity, but I have a God who loves me. And I have a church who wants me to come back and who wants to show me that love and mercy that God has to give me.
People carry around with them a lot of guilt for things that they did or things that were done to them. And we all experience guilt. Guilt can work two ways. It can move us towards change, or when it's inverted, it can move us and lead us to depression or neurosis or abusive behavior, all kinds of problems. The connection between mercy and guilt is that God's mercy can relieve that guilt and say, you are truly forgiven, and through the sacraments, through healing, prayer, through a variety of means. And for people to experience that weight being removed from them, the weight of guilt, the weight of shame, the weight of self-recrimination, whatever that may be, is an important experience to really living fully, really living well.
We need to talk more and more to people about how there is such a depth of meaning and love in following Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. I think there's so many people in this state who are looking for that kind of deeper meaning in life. We have the highest suicide rate. We have the highest rate of heroin addiction in any state in the country. That says to me that there are people who have lost meaning, that don't find a path in their life. And I'd say more than anything else, if you want to find a path that can keep you leading and loving in the right direction, it's Jesus Christ and the Holy Roman Catholic Church.
It features what we're all about, what Jesus was about. Reaching out to someone, accepting someone reaching out to you. It's the hand reaching to just touch the cloak of Jesus, if I can just touch it, and it just magnifies the spirit and the promotion of what Pope Francis is urging us all to follow, to be compassionate to one another.
A word that he uses over and over again is mercy. It seems to appear more than anything else in all of his writings. And that's because he wants people to know not God's judgment, but to know God's merciful love. That in all the things in our lives, no matter what we do, no matter the person that we are, no matter the things that we bring to anything in our lives, that we can always know God's mercy and God's love for us. And so this year of mercy, this Jubilee of Mercy, is an invitation to people to experience that mercy, not only in the Universal Church and the Church of Rome, but also right here in our local church in Burlington.
The Lord's mercy is so abundant, He wants to just pour it out upon everybody. So I hope that people who feel pain, they feel shame, they feel guilt, whatever they may feel, they'll experience God's mercy this year. Be open to it, be open to the graces the Lord wants to give, receive those graces, and be made anew.
You can't give what you don't have. And when I receive that mercy from God, when I feel that love that He so desperately wants to give me, I can't help but go out and give it to other people.
Hey, our faith is alive. The Catholic Church is alive and well in Vermont, and we're excited about it. We're proud about it. Come and see what we do.
that you really enjoyed that video and it maybe gave you a little bit of a taste of this year of mercy. I want to finish up here looking at a couple of other things. Pure of heart. Jesus says, blessed are those who are pure of heart, right? Do you believe that your heart can grow in purity? A lot of people don't think that they can. They just kind of think, well, my heart is the way it is, and I'm as pure or impure as I am, and I just have these desires and thoughts, and I am who I am. But when we talk about purity of heart, it's not just a sexual thing. It's also just having the right intention or sincerity in everything that we do. So are you sincere in what you do, or are you trying to manipulate people? Are you trying to get them to do things for you? Are you trying to, whatever it might be? Are you pure of heart? Are you honest and upfront about what you mean and what you want from others, and etc.? That I can grow in that thing. I can grow in those things. Even my sexual nature, in that sense, I can become more pure. If I'm looking at pornography all the time, if I'm committing sexual sins all the time, if I'm constantly fantasizing and choosing intentionally to think about people inappropriately or lustfully, well then I'm not going to grow. I'm going to fade in that. I'm going to get worse. But if I'm striving to live purely and I'm watching it, what it is that I look at, and I'm not looking at pornography and I'm not watching movies that I know are going to be tempting and making me think that way. If I do all of that, if I avoid all that stuff, I will grow in purity of heart. And so that's a really important thing. Finally, Jesus says, blessed are those who are persecuted for His sake, right? Blessed are those who are persecuted for His sake. If you are living your faith, you will be persecuted. That's the first thing to understand. I mean, there's no way around that. If you're living your faith outright, then if you really believe in Jesus and are trying to do these things and put this into practice, you're going to be persecuted by some people. You're also going to find a lot of people who really love you for this and admire you living your faith, but there are going to be people who are going to persecute you, right? So what helps you face that persecution is the sacrament of confirmation. Confirmation means to strengthen, right? So when you were confirmed, if you have been confirmed, that was a strengthening, a booster shot really, that would help you, that the church is saying, this will help you be strengthened so that you can live out and face this persecution. I get persecuted all the time online and stuff, posting videos. People are like, commenting, and sometimes it gets angry and nasty. And I mean, it's just one of those things that like, now that I feel like through my confirmation, it's kind of like, I don't care anymore. When you get persecuted, I mean, part of it hurts, but then the other part, you're just like, this is part of it. And you just you're strengthened by that, by the sacraments, okay? Okay, a couple of questions. What was one thing that you liked from Bishop Coyne's video today? What was one thing you liked from Bishop Coyne's video? What was something that stuck out at you, maybe about mercy that you hadn't thought of, or just anything in the video that you liked? Number two, there's a story of St. Teresa of Avila, one of my favorite saints of all time. She's in the back of our chapter 13. What is St. Teresa of Avila's definition of prayer? What is St. Teresa of Avila's definition of prayer? She was an awesome person. She was kind of spunky. She would give people a hard time every now and then. I mean, in the sense of she was just a normal person. And but yet this deep prayer life, and a very saintly person at the same time. So great stuff. If you ever get the chance to read anything by her or about her, you'll be fine. But what is her definition of prayer? Number 3 and number 4, what are the corporal works of mercy and what are the spiritual works of mercy? What are the corporal and spiritual works of mercy? Number 3 is the corporal, number 4 is the spiritual. Number 5, what is the difference between meekness and cowardice? What is the difference in your own words between meekness and cowardice? When we say we were supposed to be meek, does that mean we're supposed to be cowardly? And number 6, what does the word beatitude mean? What does the word beatitude mean? Okay, so there we are with this chapter 13. Hope you have a blessed week. If you need anything or if I can do anything for you, just give me a call and know that I'm praying for you. Have a great week. God bless.